Okay. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's do a podcast. Let's do a podcast. Um so hello. I've totally done this. Hello and welcome to Learning the Law, a podcast about all things legal with a focus on current events where we try to teach you things in an hour. My name is Ashley, aka Phoenix Nymphy, and my co-host, who doesn't have to worry about the technical side of things, he just has to be the brain, is the man of the hour, my husband, Ron. The podcast is purely educational and should not be taken as legal advice. This podcast does not create an attorney-client relationship, and this podcast is based on his interpretation of relevant law. Any opinions expressed are the opinions of the individual making them and do not reflect the opinions of any firm, company, or other individuals. Ron is a licensed practicing attorney in the state of California.
Yes, I am. Since September of 1999. That was completely last century.
This week, the podcast is sponsored by NordVPN. With more than 10 years of experience, NordVPN is a leading VPN provider. NordVPN gives you military-grade protection online, and you can access all your favorite sites without restriction. NordVPN never logs your activity, and when using their servers, you can always trust your privacy to NordVPN. Thank you for sponsoring us here at Learning the Law. If you use our link, you can have access to all of this and also help out the podcast at the same time.
Yep.
So, yeah.
So, yeah. What exactly does that mean?
Well, so we like to start off our weeks. How's it been since last Tuesday for you?
It's been pretty good. The firm I work at, recognizes uh, Indigenous Day. So I got that off yesterday.
Which it used to be Christopher or Columbus Day, but did they make it official? Was that the announcement? No. Okay, it's not officially Indigenous Day, but it should be. It should be changed to Indigenous Day.
The place I work at will not call it Columbus Day.
Oh, they just won't.
Nope.
I know that Biden referred to it as Indigenous Peoples Day. So, I think we're finally in a process of getting that flipped, which has been requested for years. So good. I mean, in all of the stuff we've been dealing with over the last few, months with Biden, starting with the, removing of the troops and everything, and just because he hasn't been doing so great. So he got a win yesterday. So good on him. But can you maybe a little bit further than just acknowledging it and actually make that change? I mean, it's like the bare minimum. He's like every white guy. It's just the bare minimum, man. You're the bare minimum. Come on. Can you just step a little bit further and give a little bit more?
I think it would take Congress to actually change it.
I think it would, but I think it would go a long way if the president put it forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you think about it, it's not it's a very simple act to do. Just swapping the day to a different name.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, it's literally the bare minimum Congress and the government could do. there's so much more that they need to do. Like, oh, stop the pipelines that are going through indigenous lands. But that's a whole other podcast, and I'm getting off the topic. I need to rein it in. Rein it in, Ashley. Rein it in.
Well, we just had an oil spill off the coast of Southern California.
We did. That's we are here for news and politics. We are here to learn the law. So let's focus on the law of today. However, we do in the future, it would be interesting to go over the territory and the treaties and stuff and show exactly how badly showcase exactly how much the government is actually going against their own laws when it comes to indigenous peoples. I think that would also be a couple of episodes because there's a lot there.
Well, if my calculation's correct, if we did one episode per treaty, we could go for about 12 years.
Yeah, that's although November is considered Indigenous Heritage Month, I believe. I believe Obama put that into place, correct? Native American History Month. I believe November.
You know better than me.
I believe so November might actually be a good month to work on that. Although with the that is actually something to bring up. With the holidays coming up, the podcast will not be regular because we will be taking a vacation. So I think what I've done with podcast in the past is up until like the week before Thanksgiving, I do podcast, and then we just take the rest of the year off and come back in January. So, and I think that's probably the best thing to do. So that's probably what we will do. That way we don't have to worry about, because we're going to have a lot of stuff because everybody gets really busy during the holidays. We're definitely planning things. So unless, and it'll give us a chance to address and organize. Cause when we started this podcast, we kind of jumped in it without really, we had an idea of what we wanted to do, but now like we're coming up with all of these interesting things. We want to branch out. So this will be a good time for us to rest, a good time for us to, really focus and work on that new content, more of that new content. And so, yeah, I guess that was another announcement that I didn't really think about until just now. Anyway, no questions from people. Specifically, the most questions that I keep getting asked, only because I'm a streamer on Twitch, is about the Twitch content. It's coming, guys. I promise it is coming. I promise. There's just a lot going on with this particular situation that we're addressing. Because after this episode, we're going to move on to Roe v. Wade. So the Twitch lawsuit and all of the Twitch hate raid stuff, that we have to do separate outside of the live stuff. So I promise it is coming. I promise.
Is that the one we're recording?
Yeah. But that's what I keep getting the most is more people want to know more about that. And totally understandable because it affects a lot of the people that I know. Completely understand. So, without further ado, you want to get into the podcast? I interrupted you. I'm so sorry. Do you want to finish what you were saying?
I just said that's when we're recording.
No. Before that, you're telling us about your week. And I just completely... I am a horrible person. I'm sorry. It's ADHD brain, but it's still no excuse. I apologize.
No, I had a 3-day weekend. It was very relaxing. Today was very busy. Had physical therapy.
Yeah.
You were there.
You got all sweaty.
I don't think I did all that well, but I didn't do poorly.
Well, you're having to adjust the way you used to walk. I mean, you're learning how to walk again, and it's not the same way that you've
Right.
walked for 54 years.
Right.
So, um, there's a lot that there's a lot with that, and it's gonna be a process.
Yeah. It sucks. That's all I'm gonna say.
It does, but doing what you're doing now is, think of it this way, babe. You're creating the base, and then you're building from there.
Oh, I know. It's just gonna take a long time.
It is. It is. So, back on the lawsuit. Do you remember where we stopped at?
I believe it was page 11.
Yes, it was. I was just making sure that you remembered. I was totally not making sure that I remembered correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I do have it on page 12 right here.
Because we're at the start of page 12.
Yes. Yes. And just I guess for those who are listening to this and didn't listen to the previous podcast, we are going over the lawsuit that the DOJ filed in September against Texas for their abortion law. Now, there has been some updates on this process so far. We will get to those at the end of the podcast and talk about that at the end of the podcast.
Okay. You don't want to talk about it now?
I think we should get this established first and understand what they're doing, and then talk about, I think it would be better, and then talk about the updates on this.
Okay. So, as you recall, hopefully, we were talking about the enforcement of the law, pretty much deputizing the citizens of Texas to bring lawsuits.
And that's the type of language they're using in this lawsuit.
Right. So here we are, top of page 12, paragraph 35, where you have the Department of Justice telling the court that these private citizens are really state actors. And they are agents of the state. And therefore, Texas itself is not immune from being sued.
Right.
For, unconstitutional law. And so in 35, they say the individuals are state actors to the extent that they are significantly involved in conduct that would be unconstitutional if engaged in by the state of Texas itself or Texas has sanctioned their conduct. And they cite a case where U.S. Supreme Court decided that there was state action where there was racial discrimination in the housing market.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an analogous where you're going to find unconstitutional actions by these agents of the state can be reflected back onto the state itself because they're the ones sanctioning it.
So can you explain that in a way that I understand, please? So basically,
okay, here you go. If you're a real estate person,
mm-hmm.
you need to be licensed by the state to have a real estate license.
Yes.
So if you are racially discriminatory and only showing certain sections or certain neighborhoods to white clients and not to minorities, that would be racial discrimination, correct?
Yes. And I'm pretty sure there have been several cases about that particular scenario in multiple places.
Okay. So the Supreme Court found that because of the licensing, there was state action, i.e., government action in that racial discrimination.
Oh. So they basically said, Texas, you've got to stop them from doing this, or else you are held responsible for allowing this to happen.
I'm not sure that the case they're citing was from Texas. It's just a Supreme Court case from 67.
Okay. But
I
basically
didn't look to see
saying
where
that,
it was.
okay, so whatever state that was that happened in, that state is responsible for those real estate agents because they're the ones who give out the
The
license.
license. Right. So the analogy is Texas, you've deputized all your private citizens. What you're doing is unconstitutional on its face because it goes against Roe v. Wade. And therefore, there is government action. You can be held liable for the unconstitutional law.
Oh,
That's what the
so
that's what the DOJ is saying. If mere licensing of a real estate agent is government action, then deputizing all the private citizens in the state should also be government action.
okay, I gotcha.
Okay.
So I have a
And that's the
question.
yeah.
This just came. What about, so we get our driver's licenses from this state.
Yes.
So could they be held liable for something that we do in the car if we're driving? Could the state, because they allow that person to have the car,
That is a great question.
or they allow the person to have the license to drive?
There is government action allowing that person license to drive. Now, why doesn't the state be involved in every single car accident?
I mean, that would be absurd, but
Because one, it would be absurd, but two, when you get the license, you have taken a test. You are presumed to be not negligent in the operation of the car. And the operation of the car does not violate any kind of constitutional right.
okay. Well, a real estate agent has to take a test to get a license.
Correct.
So what's the difference?
Because he's violating a constitutional right. And it's in the discrimination.
You're not necessarily violating a constitutional right because you don't have a right to drive. It's a privilege. It's not.
It is a privilege.
That's where the difference comes to.
It's also a privilege to be a real estate agent.
But the practice that they are doing is a right that they are doing is against people's personal rights. So it would have to be, so basically it'd have to be someone who is mowing down minorities, essentially, in their car. That's when, like, even so, yeah. Anyway, disregard what I just said. But
okay.
Basically it'd have to be someone who, if you get a driver's license and then you're like, all right, well, I'm gonna go mow down, everybody in the ghetto in my car because the state gave me the ability to do that. Would that even be the equivalent, or it's still not equivalent because
you could make the analogy, but that person's going to be charged with murder.
Oh, absolutely. Or attempted murder.
Right. And if you tried to sue the state over giving him the license, the state would just claim government immunity. So in practicality, you're not going to sue the state for that.
Now, at the same time, when it comes to the real estate, and I'm just like spitballing stuff here. So At the same time, though, you have, these real estate agents who are, um, this particular, I don't know the details of this particular suit they're referencing, but I would assume it meant they brought it up because the state wasn't doing anything after being brought to them. That would be my assumption. Like when it comes to the driver, the state absolutely takes action against you and will revoke your license, your driver's license. They do it all the time. So like, you know what I mean? Like there's also that working, like there's that difference. It's just something that just popped into my head. We can move on. It was just a thought. I'm just arguing things in my head. My brain is like going 1,000 miles a minute right now, and it's just all over the place. So we're going to have to rein me in.
Okay. Well, yeah. The real estate doesn't really have anything to do with this. So,
I know.
The next section, it's section 3, and it says SB 8, the heartbeat law, affects interstate commerce. And the reason this is important is only Congress can pass laws that affect interstate commerce. It's what's known as the Commerce Clause of the U.S. Constitution. And they've used the power of that Commerce Clause for numerous things over the years. For example, one of the things that happened during the Civil Rights Act is they used the Commerce Clause as a way to integrate eating establishments.
That's right. I remember you talking about this before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so paragraph 36, they're saying and it's right there, by stripping women of their constitutional rights to certain abortion services in Texas, as well as outlining many of the commercial services that provide abortion services. SB 8 forces women who wish to obtain these services to travel out of Texas to other states, i.e., interstate, in order to exercise their constitutional rights. And thusly, that's a law that's prohibited, and only Congress can do that.
So basically, because it forces women out of state, and the fact that they still can get sued, that's why that's important.
Well, it forces them out of state, and they have to do business out of state, i.e., commerce.
Yeah.
And
they can still get sued for going out of state.
Yeah. But that doesn't have any bearing on the Commerce Clause.
Oh.
The suit itself. Just the fact that you have to go out of state and it's for a business purpose.
Yeah.
That's all you need. Theoretically, and I think I've said this before, Congress can regulate your kid's lemonade stand on the corner of the street. Because theoretically, cars can come from other states and pass by that lemonade stand.
Yeah.
So, and the next paragraph goes into...
I want to say there was a case. God, I feel like there was a case where some kid's lemonade stand was forced to shut down for some reason. God, I wish I could.
There's been state cases and county cases a lot where, they didn't have the license to be a food provider like a food truck is, or a sidewalk vendor.
And it's like it's a kid's lemonade stand. Why are we? It's so weird. Anyway.
So, anyhow, the next paragraph goes into how it's already affected commerce. and they're showing that the clinics in they say Oklahoma, Louisiana, New Mexico, Colorado, and Kansas are being inundated with a surge of pregnant people. One clinic in Oklahoma reported that after SB 8 went into effect, the number of calls it received from Texans increased from approximately 3 to 5 calls per day to between 50 and 55.
Jesus Christ.
So it's affecting these other states' clinics to provide a constitutional medical service. And that affects interstate commerce.
Yeah.
So, and once again, only Congress can do that.
Yeah. Okay. We're just now at page 13. Can we
Yeah. Yeah, we're going on.
Okay.
Okay, paragraphs 38, 39, 40. Once again, go through this. It's affecting interstate commerce. Okay. Now, finally, page 14. You get to the first like cause of action section where it says SB 8 irreparably injures the United States.
Wow, that's some language. Holy crap. That's some harsh language right there.
Yeah. Subdivision 1. It injures the United States by depriving women in Texas of their constitutional rights while seeking to prevent them from vindicating those rights in federal court. So not only are they being denied the abortion service, they're being denied the right to go to federal court to get that.
Yeah.
To get an order for that service. And I would like everyone to please remember that the legislature excluded themselves from this law.
Yes. I wish they would bring that up in this.
Yeah, I don't know if they do or not, but it's good to be the king. And so on page 14, they go into exactly how the U.S. is being irreparably injured. And basically, by denying your own people the rights provided by the Constitution, that is irreparably harming the United States itself, because the United States is, of course, we the people.
Yeah. And it just goes into detail explaining. It looks like what it's doing is it's just taking that idea and just breaking it down and giving excessively more detail on what they mean by that specific idea.
Right. And, you can't place an undue burden on it, which they go into detail on exactly why this is an undue burden.
Right. Yeah.
And then subsection 2, which is on page 15, SB 8 unconstitutionally restricts the operations of the federal government and conflicts with federal law. Reason this is important is the Supremacy Clause of the United States Constitution says federal law trumps over, i.e., overrules any conflicting state law.
Which was referenced earlier in one of the earlier pages as well.
Correct. You'll find a lot of legal pleadings are repetitious.
Redundant.
Redundant too, but yeah. Basically, you introduce by telling them what you're going to argue, then you argue, and then in conclusion, you tell them what you just argued.
Yeah, it's a college paper, college argument paper. Like it's a college research paper is what it is.
Now, as you go on, you'll see that one of the things they're saying is that SB 8 is going to interfere with the Department of Labor Job Corps program.
How?
Interesting. The Job Corps program assists eligible young people between the ages of 16 and 24 with completing their high school diploma, gaining gainful employment. Let's see, how is it going to interfere with that? I'm scrolling through. Job Corps regulations specifically require the Texas Job Corps contractors to provide medical services through provision or coordination of a wellness program, which includes access to basic medical, dental, and mental health services, which would include abortion services. Federal program.
Because Job Corps is a federal program. Okay.
Yeah. You can't deny them with the state law. But
Wow.
that's what this would do.
Yep. Okay.
Okay. And that,
So that's just
yeah.
basically them saying, here's more reasons why this state law is wrong, and just more evidence. It's just more evidence that they're bringing forward.
This would be an example by analogy that would also include any military members in the state of Texas.
Yeah. Yeah.
The second program that would be impacted apparently is the Office of Refugee Resettlement. So, the refugees that we do have coming from, say, Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Would be impacted. The Bureau of Prisons, federal, would be impacted. All the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, which again, federal programs that provide medical services would be impacted. All these things state law cannot change.
Office of Personnel Management.
Yeah, that's the federal, all the federal workers.
Wow. The DOD.
That's your military.
Okay. There's the military. And then, wow. So they just basically went through and labeled all of the federal things that exist in this state that this will affect.
The big ones, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's more, but
right.
They can't make this 1,000 pages long.
Jeez.
Okay, and then on page 24, you got the third section. The harms that SB 8 inflicts are imminent and traceable to the state.
Now, what does that mean?
That means that, one, the harm to women is pretty much immediate, or will shortly be immediate.
Okay, because of how soon.
Because one, there's pregnant women in Texas all the time.
Yeah.
So their harm is imminent if they want to get an abortion according to their constitutional right, and they're being denied that right.
Yeah.
So they're being harmed. The second part is it's traceable to the state, even though the state denies that. And the reason it's traceable to the state is, once again, all these people have been deputized by Texas to sue. Even though it's not Texas suing.
And even almost encouraged by the language. Like, they're encouraging them to do this.
Yeah. And so, that is the lawsuit, the arguments in the lawsuit. The next section, 24, which is a section for any lawsuit that you file, state, federal, you got to give your claim of relief, what you want.
Okay.
And so Um, count 1, supremacy clause, 14th Amendment.
So what's
They
a
want
claims of relief again? Claims for relief. What is that?
a
That's
claim of relief is what you want the court to do, what you want the court to find.
oh, okay.
I'll give you an example. Personal injury suit. First claim of relief is going to be for property damages. You
Gotcha.
know,
Gotcha. So this is where you get the damages for the stuff. Okay. All right.
yeah. So the first one is they want the court to find the supremacy clause overrules SB 8, the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution,
Yeah.
which gives the U.S. Constitution powers over the state, and it was enacted after the U.S. Civil War.
Yeah.
Okay. The second one is preemption.
What does that mean?
That means that SB 8 is violating the supremacy clause, and it is preempted because it is contrary to the U.S. Constitution. That means it needs just to be removed.
Okay. All right.
And then you got the count 3, where it's a violation of intergovernmental immunity. And that is basically SB 8 directly regulates the activities of the federal government and its contractors, grantees, and non-governmental partners, as was shown before with the DOD and
Yeah.
Job Corps and that. And SB 8 therefore violates the federal government's intergovernmental immunity and is invalid.
Okay.
So 26, they want a declaratory judgment stating that SB 8 is invalid, null, and void. They want a preliminary and permanent injunction against the state of Texas, including all of its officers, employees, and agents, which includes the private parties that would bring suit, and prohibiting all and any enforcement of SB 8. Those are the two things. And then the next thing is something that is pretty general when you want kind of injunction and relief. Any and all other relief necessary to fully effectuate the injunction against SB 8's enforcement.
Wow.
Okay. Then, D, this is a pretty standard clause, that the court award the United States its cost in the action. That's like the person injured in a car accident asking the court for its cost to bring a suit against the defendant who is negligent.
Oh, so yeah, Texas needs to pay for the cost of all of
Yeah.
this bullshit.
And you can bet that's a pretty hefty price tag.
That basically it's a fine on Texas for bringing this crap up because it's just nonsense.
Right.
Is what they're asking for.
And then any other relief that the court deems just and proper.
Fair enough.
And then, it's got everybody who's signed it.
Right. So
And that's your 27-page complaint.
So what's the updates on this so far?
Okay. On October 6th, a judge in the Western District Court of Texas.
This is a federal judge.
A federal judge, yeah. Ordered an injunction stopping the enforcement of SB 8.
Okay.
And so for
this is
2
an
days,
actual Texas federal judge.
Yeah, it's an actual federal judge in
Texas.
the Western District in Texas. Yes.
Yeah.
And so what happened then was the state of Texas brought an emergency appeal to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. Texas is in the Fifth Circuit. And
so what you're saying is the state of Texas appealed what one of their judges said.
Yeah, they appealed what one of the federal judges said,
Yeah.
and a 3-judge panel um, basically said that the injunction given by the district federal court is inoperable at this time. The, so the law went into effect again, and
What do they mean
that
by at this time, though?
because it's a 3-judge panel, the entire court of appeals needs to hear a case
Okay.
generally. So the 3-judge panel, one was a Clinton appointee, one was a George W. Bush appointee, and one was a Trump appointee. In case anyone's keeping score, said that the DOJ had until today at 5 p.m. to respond
Oh,
because,
okay.
and if they want to be heard by the entire court, which generally that's what happens.
Okay.
You first go to the 3 judges. You pretty much get to pick out the 3 judges that you want to hear your case, and then it will go to the entire case. The district court, the federal judge, gave a 113-page opinion.
Holy crap.
Yeah, 113 pages on why this law is unconstitutional. It was pretty thorough.
Okay, I'm just curious. Was this federal judge who, because basically this started the appeals process on this particular
Yeah.
thing. So now we get to see if it's going to even get to the Supreme Court. So the federal judge,
Robert L. Pittman,
white
who
man.
was, yes,
Okay,
as far as I know.
that's what I
I don't
wanted
think
to know.
they haven't given him a picture, but I believe he is. I could be wrong. He wasn't.
Color me impressed.
He was an Obama appointee,
Okay.
and he wrote that it is substantially likely that the courts will find SB 8 violates the 14th Amendment, citing multiple comments and testimonies from clinicians, patients. Judge ruled that the law places an undue burden on women seeking abortion in Texas and thus violates her rights. If this situation does not constitute an undue burden, it's hard to imagine what would. And then, he said some things about, the Supreme Court not doing its job, apparently. I haven't gone through.
Wait, he called out the Supreme Court?
That is
ballsy.
The power of a federal judge and a lifetime appointment.
That's some ballsy stuff right there, though, yo.
Federal judges have no F's left to give.
Is this why you want to be a judge?
I would love to be a federal judge.
That's wow.
The only time they have F's left to give is if they want to be appointed up the ladder. Up to the Court of Appeals or up to the Supreme Court.
Jeez.
Some judges don't care about that.
Wow, that's wow.
In what am I trying to say? The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeal, in their opinion, overruling this judge, gave a short 1-page opinion.
I love how the people who don't really have a leg to stand on never come back with a list. It's just like, because I don't want to,
Yeah. And that's basically what this 1-page opinion from the Court of Appeal said. Was basically, we're going to agree with the Supreme Court that it needs to just go through the system. but we're going to let it go into effect.
But it
And
doesn't.
yes,
It doesn't need to go through the system. We all know what needs to happen.
I
Just end it.
I just Googled Robert L. Pittman. He is an older white man.
Okay.
We apparently have the same hairstyle.
Of course. Yeah.
Because apparently a lot of judges are bald.
Well, you'll fit right in.
And interesting to note, his alma mater was Abilene Christian University.
That is actually very interesting. See? You you can't judge a book by its cover. That's really ballsy to call out the Supreme Court though. Like I'm not even gonna lie. Like that's wow. I mean, and that kind of brings us to the end of the podcast.
Oh, one other, he was the first openly gay U.S. attorney in Texas. U.S. attorney.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
There it is. There it is. I knew it had to be something. Because, anyway, gonna rein in my opinions, but that's cool to learn a little bit more about that judge. And I think I respect him for being that ballsy. However, this wraps up our discussion on the abortion law with Texas, which means our next podcast is going to be Roe v. Wade.
Right.
And
just so people know, Roe v. Wade just doesn't say abortion's legal.
No, I was
it goes into much more detail than that and why.
And this is the Roe v. Wade miniseries is going. I don't know how long it's going to be, but it's going to be a few episodes. So come along with us on that ride. But yeah, Roe v. Wade, not just about abortion.
Correct.
So I hope that y'all have enjoyed so far our take and understanding on these lawsuits and bills that have come out.
Also, we'll give an update on what the DOJ did today.
Once we have information.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we'll get more information. We'll definitely, again, with the Blizzard, like, we got to keep up with the Blizzard lawsuit as well. We need to look and see what.
Oh, there's updates on that.
There is updates on that? Okay.
Yes.
You want to give a quick update on that?
Did we say that the EEOC settled with Blizzard for $18 million?
We did talk about that because we wanted to address that those are two different lawsuits. They're not the same lawsuit.
Right. Now, the California Department of Fair Education and Housing has gone in to contest that settlement.
What?
Yeah. They're contesting it. Another group that is suing Activision Blizzard has contested it, and mainly they're contesting it because it will impact
their lawsuit.
Yeah.
So by contesting it, are they saying, no, you're not allowed to settle? You can't settle this. You're not.
Correct.
Oh, like you're going to have to go to trial for that.
Yeah, or at least the settlement is going to have to be stayed until our lawsuit's over.
Because okay, so can you explain why they would do that? Yeah.
Yeah. Because $18 million to the number of people
it's nothing
affected is nothing. And so if, say then, the state gets $100 million judgment in this, right?
Yeah.
I'm just throwing out a number. They can appeal that $100 million judgment, and they can say, Court of Appeals, this violates the consciousness of the court. the federal government only wanted 18 million. Why does the state want 100?
Oh,
Yeah.
so the state is like, no, 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 no. No, no, no. That's too little. We're not doing that. You're going to hold off on that.
Right.
That's basically what the state said.
That's what they're wanting.
California ain't pulling no punches, man. California is not pulling punches with Blizzard Activision. Good. So where are we at with that? Where are they at with that? Like, is it have they put a stay on it, or
No, nothing's been ruled yet.
so if they do put a stay on it, could afterwards, after the California lawsuit, could the, what is it, EEOC, could they then request more?
Yeah, they
If the
could
state-
relitigate the whole thing. A settlement can always be backed out of until it's signed.
I wonder why why did they try to get this settlement but not the state settlement?
Because I think that Activision Blizzard was so short-sighted onto how this was going to affect them and their business and how much money it could possibly cost, that they pretty much ignored it.
I hate to say this, but I think that this might be the end of Blizzard.
Well, I mean,
The
Blizzard stock tanked more than the 18 million that they're settling with.
I can't tell you how many of my friends are just so many people are just done with Blizzard, and like it's tainted. It's just tainted. Even like I you know how I am. I like to go back in and play every couple of months, and I'm just like, because I like the classic. I was really enjoying Burning Crusade, but and I love leveling with you and playing with you, but it's tainted. Like I just don't have that desire.
I understand that.
And like even with Overwatch, I'm just like, the thing is I love Overwatch, and like I saw the new skins, I'm like, oh, that's so cool. I want to go play. And then I'm like, but I don't. I even uninstalled it. I'm done. Like right now I'm done. Like I'm just, because, and I can't explain it. Like, yes, I have so many friends because of WoW. I have you because of WoW. Like I have so many good memories from Blizzard games, but I also have very tainted memories from Blizzard games. And this actually doesn't help. And so just, yeah.
No, I understand that.
And I wouldn't be surprised if old farts like you eventually got done with it because of the lawsuit. Because it's just, you know.
Eventually. In the meantime, though, there are a lot of women that kept their jobs that are there.
Yeah.
Hoping that things get better.
Right. That's the thing, though. You've got to have people in it. I mean, we were discussing this just the other day. Like, you've got to, because you had suggested that we were specifically talking about Twitch, y'all. All right, we're going to wrap this up here soon. But we were talking about Twitch and how there's no real competition against Twitch right now. Facebook gaming is just garbage. YouTube live streaming is getting better, but it's not where Twitch is. And the real competition that Twitch had was bought out by Microsoft, and Microsoft just let it fall under. They just dropped the ball on it. And Ron had,
as Microsoft is
want to do, yeah, they do that all the time. And Ron had suggested that, you know, we create a all women built platform where it's women who are head of the company and not advertise it as like female Twitch or ladies Twitch, right? Like, which I think that's what kills a lot of stuff that is female led, that is led by women, because they advertise it as led by women instead of just saying, hey, this is a new product, try it out. You know what I mean? But
Right, because when you, and I'm going to say this as an old white fat bald guy, when you do that, that tells me, quote unquote, that you don't want me to be part of your marketing.
right, it isolates an entire market. And so advertising specifically for women or even for men is really just gendered marketing is just bad. So it would be great to have competition for Twitch. I think that would be fantastic. It would be great to have competition for other game devs that have women at the helm, right? It would be fantastic to have that. However, you also need those women that are at Blizzard actively helping change it, because had it not been for those women, we would have never learned about it. It would have not gotten to where it is. So there is no right way to make these changes. You have to do it all. We need, let's get some girls who can code and create a new platform and try something new out. That would be so cool. And have the women who work at Twitch to help do better. I know quite a few people, quite a few ladies who work at Twitch, and one girl who was actually on the Girl Streamer podcast, now works at Twitch, and she's trying to help that change from the inside. So, because I know that a lot of people have been giving these women crap for still working at these companies, and it's like, no, they're also doing a service. They're also on the ground working. There is no exact way. You have to do it all. And that's with anything that needs big change, because it is systemic. Those officers that are working in the police force who are trying to help it's hard to change it when you have institutions like that from the inside. It's hard to make those changes, and it's hard to be that person on the inside. It's really easy to be on the outside and go, well, you're just a part of it. But are you? Are they always just no, they're not. They're not always condoning it. So keep that in mind when you're talking to people when it comes to this kind of stuff. You've got to have it from all sides to make it change. Whether it's this abortion law, whether it's, women's rights, civil rights, human rights, you've got to have it all. You've got to work from all angles to help people see and understand and make those changes. And on that note, we'll end the podcast. Thank you so much for listening to Learning the Law. If you like this podcast and want to hear more, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, and share in all your favorite places. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Learning the Law, Ron at NecroKijo, and me at Phoenix Nymphy. If you have any questions, please tweet, comment, or email us at twolazydogsmedia@gmail.com. This has been a Two Lazy Dogs production.
Bye, everyone.